Welcome everybody to another ADV China adventure. Now before we get started, and this topic by the way is all about how foreigners are being kicked out of China, why don't you explain to everybody where we are in this particular situation?
This is Liaoning province, is up in the north of China, so north of Beijing even. Dongbei is where you find all that hardy food, hardy people. It gets cold, harsh winters and stuff.
Yeah.
In this particular province, we're in the area of Yingkou, which Yingkou is like it's like a city. It's a pretty big city actually, pretty decent sized city. It's actually home to a CBA, Chinese Basketball Association team, kind of like the NBA.
What are they called?
Can't remember.
There's a
Liaoning
Flying
Tigers
Panthers or something?
Yeah, flying something.
Okay, well.
Anyway, I don't follow CBA really. I've been to one game in Dongguan. But anyway, long story short, this is a little tiny town called Yangyun.
Yeah, that's what we just passed, a gas station that said Yangyun on it.
Yeah.
Now you have to understand that what you're seeing here is not rural, and it's not the big city. It's kind of an in-betweener. It's kind of like the sprawl.
Yeah, sprawl.
And this is, I'd say, the majority of Chinese people live in this kind of condition.
Yeah.
At least from my, travels.
Well, I mean, we've probably done, just on our motorcycles around almost every province in China, we've done probably cumulatively 60,000 kilometers.
Yeah, that's it.
And this is your smack bang in the middle of normal life. And that's why we wanted to pick a town like this for this topic, because this is the average life of a Chinese person.
So what does this have to do with foreigners exactly? Well, foreigners have been slowly incentivized to leave as of late. And in fact, it's been ramping up a lot. And what's actually happening, whether you see it, whether they're saying it directly or not, is foreigners are actually being kicked out of China, are being forced out of China in so many ways. And it kind of started with the whole shutting down of the English language training centers.
Yeah.
Foreigners have always been, I don't know how to explain it, like an accepted nuisance.
Yeah, I would use that word as well. Yeah.
And it's good to have foreigners around because they're useful for a couple of things. Number one, they're very good for doing things like teaching English. Okay, it's a skill that a lot of Chinese parents want their children to have. At least they used to be that way. And it's good to have foreigners around for, doing advertising and whatever.
Foreign investment.
Of course, that's the big one. We have to look past the English teachers and look at the actual...
real movers.
Yeah, the people that live in Shanghai and who are part of a big company, and maybe they're a manager or they're a floor manager at a factory or something. Or, that kind of thing. So, foreigners are always kind of... They're allowed to be around. They're tolerated, Yeah. And are given special privilege and have been historically given special privilege. Being a foreigner, you are treated better. But when I say treated better, I'm saying treated better by the general public and so on, but not when it comes to your rights and not when it comes to legal matters and so on. You're actually treated a lot worse.
Yeah, so this actually was a thing where in the golden period of China, when we call it, it only started to get kind of bad around 2014. I would say specifically 2015 was when you saw a shift. Because what actually was happening behind the scenes was this whole kind of, I'm not going to say pro-foreigner attitude, but like friendly towards foreigners attitude.
Yeah, we're working together.
Was fine, because what that meant was Chinese people were getting money. There was foreign investment coming in, and the government tolerated people to the extent that people on the ground were treating foreigners with not very much animosity. It was like a friendship thing.
Yeah.
And that was a great time to be there. But in 2015, when Xi Jinping kind of solidified his power, he was already in power for a couple of years, but he solidified his power by getting rid of all the competition that was pro-market, pro-foreigner.
Yeah.
Those forces were gone, and Xi Jinping could finally pursue his true policy of xenophobia and unifying the country under nationalism and xenophobia. That's when we started to see it. So we started to see hotels around China, that normally maybe you would be like, okay, we're not technically allowed to let foreigners stay here, but we don't care.
Yeah, we used to have that a lot in our early days of traveling around China. They'd be like, well, foreigners are not allowed to really stay here, but you can stay.
Yeah. Then they started enforcing the rules.
Yeah, around 2014.
2015-ish.
Yeah, 13, 14, 15.
Yeah. But anyway, that was just a little inkling of this. Yeah. Right now, what we're seeing is we've been covering this to ad nauseum. The whole foreigners leaving China thing kind of started with our generation of foreigners, the big exodus. But the final exodus is happening now. The last people that were kind of remaining there after us are leaving now. And it has a lot to do with the whole crazy, insane lockdown situation in Shanghai.
Yeah.
But it goes much further than that.
I mean, a lot of it has to do with the lockdown.
Sure.
I mean, if you look at some of these headlines that you see the Great Translation Movement has translated, you'll notice that they blame every single country, whether it's France or America or Germany or whatever it is, they always have someone to blame other than themselves.
Yes.
The Chinese government can never accept responsibility for any of its bad actions.
Sure.
And of course, this has a terrible knock-on effect where the local people start to blame foreigners for all the troubles around them because that's what the government's telling them.
Of course.
Your internet's unprotected.
Little babies.
Here at ADV China, we really recommend that all of our viewers always use a VPN. In fact, we use a VPN every single day, and the VPN that we choose is NordVPN. With a VPN, you can make sure that your data is encrypted, secret, and safe, not only from other people, but even from your internet service provider. For example, let's say you're out on the town and you just want to use public Wi-Fi because you don't want to waste your data. Well, you better make sure that you're on a VPN to make sure that everything that you're doing online, your passwords, your information, all personal details, is encrypted and going through that tunnel. Because if you don't, there's a very good chance that people can mine and harvest your data. If you go to nordvpn.com/ADVChina, not only are you going to get a huge discount off of a 2-year plan, but you're also going to get access to Nord's free anti-malware feature to give you an extra layer of protection. Go to nordvpn.com/ADVChina and help support the channel. Thanks.
You saw that ridiculous thing with the pots and pans? You know, in Shanghai right now, a lot of the local people are in a terrible situation. They don't have food security. What's happening is they're not getting food delivery on time. There's been corruption. There's been a supply chain issue. So people are going hungry. Okay, they're not satisfied. They need supplies. And what happened?
People have been starving to death.
Yeah, so they started to bang their pots and pans, in protest basically, and scream out the windows. So what happens? The Chinese government goes and says it's foreign forces inciting people to bang their pots and pans.
有关部门通报，境外势力在鼓动中国居民敲锅抗议或劳动音乐会。这项活动是境外人员篡锅指使的阴谋，让大家明辨是非，通过正确的途径反映合理诉求，不要给境外势力机会，谢谢配合。
How stupid do you have to be? But it just ramps up xenophobia. So now, if you're a foreigner living in a building compound, and there's been people, like banging pots and pans, the government goes out and says foreign forces are inciting this. All your neighbors are going to look at you as if you're the person who's been inciting this.
Yeah, but there's a good point to make is that a huge chunk of people will laugh at stuff. I showed this story to people outside of Shanghai that haven't seen this story.
Yeah.
And the Chinese people roll their eyes and laugh because this is outlandish to blame something like this. The problem is that a certain group of people will latch onto this.
Yeah.
The lost generation people, the Red Guard people that grew up under Chairman Mao.
Yeah.
And number two, it's not even the government's purpose to say, oh, everyone out there is going to start ganging up on foreigners. What is actually happening is it's a seed being planted so that there's animosity and suspicion everywhere.
That's
right?
correct.
It's not that your neighbor is going to be like, this is the guy that told everyone to bang pots and pans. It's just ridiculous, right? Sure. But the seeds in there that maybe I shouldn't associate with these foreigners, right? Yeah. It's a whole thing. They started this whole how to find spy movement in China. They're now saying that foreigners...
By the way, I just have to point out, this is a very typical scene that you'll find as you drive through these small rural areas.
Yeah.
You can see here you've got a horse-drawn cart just carrying some logs and, just some random stuff burning on the side of the road.
The old side of the road trash
burn. Had to point that out. Sorry, let's continue. But,
No, it's atmospheric.
This is absolutely...
Memories.
Yeah, this is very much a normal scene.
Yeah.
It's not out of the ordinary to see this. And remember, this is what, half an hour, 40 minutes drive out of Dalian?
Dalian, major
everybody
city.
knows Dalian.
International.
So don't think that this is the middle of, nowhere. This is very close to a big city.
I like that you brought that up, actually, because this is the reason that we want to highlight places like this is that you would never see... The Chinese government doesn't want people to see normal life, which is unfair to the people that live there, by the way. And number two, if you watch any sort of travel thing or any person like filming in China right now, you're not going to see this stuff because the government would shut it down. They're like, no, don't show anyone that. All of China looks like downtown Shanghai and Beijing.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, they're starting this whole campaign about how to catch foreigners, foreign spies. They started that in 2015 with us.
Yeah.
Where people were reporting us for being spies, and they're doing it and ramping it up now.
Again.
So anybody that you find suspicious, right?
Yeah.
You can report them as a spy. There's an anonymous tip line. You can go, you get rewarded, right? You can get money compensation. A friend of mine in Shanghai went to go take his pictures of his food delivery because it was missing. Someone either stole it or it didn't arrive, right? His lockdown quarantine food stipend.
Yeah.
The local people in his building, right? He doesn't even live there. He's just stuck there. By the way. Local people in his building reported him as a spy and called the police and wouldn't let him leave because they're like, this foreigner is trying to spread information about whatever's happening here to the rest of the world, when he was just literally trying to show that his food delivery hadn't arrived. That's the level of paranoia that is forcing foreigners out.
Exactly, because, the statistics say already that about 50% of foreigners, like 48% of foreigners living in Shanghai have now said they're leaving. As soon as the lockdown's over and they can leave, they're leaving. Yeah. That's a huge amount.
That's massive. And keep in mind, most foreigners in China live in Shanghai.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Most of them do. And what was how much investment has pulled out?
$17 billion in 1 month.
In 1 month.
Outflow. Foreign outflow. Yeah.
It makes sense. It's a hostile environment for foreigners and for foreign businesses.
Yeah.
Why would you want to stick around when you're being blamed for everything?
Dude, it's really bad, and actually it's super heartbreaking, but I'm past the heartbreak now, and I'm just trying to cover facts and reality.
Yeah.
And the facts and reality, and again, this is not directed at foreigners necessarily living in China, it's just to educate people. The way that the Chinese government has gone, they've already solidified the approach they're going to take. For example, if you look at the Ukraine crisis, they've chosen Russia as their side, right? That solidifies their position and how they're going to be dealing with the West in the future.
Sure.
They've chosen power and a new power dynamic over friendship and investment, right? The money to them is less important because what Xi Jinping has tried to do doesn't actually care about the economy.
Yeah.
He wants to see how much control he can exert over the country so that he can shut it off again and basically be an emperor, more or less.
That's right.
This is not fantasy. This is actually what's happening. Yeah. So there's a lot of foreigners, I think the stragglers, the ones that are left there, and my heart goes out to them and stuff, but they're now just understanding that this is government policy versus like, I just don't understand why this stuff is happening. Oh, it's all this bad world that we live in today. Yeah. No, it's actually the prerogative of the central government in China right now to make you feel unwelcome and try to leave. Yeah. They don't want you there anymore.
Also, look at it from this point of view, okay? China has never been an immigrant country.
No.
Okay, I lived in China for 14 plus years. You lived in China for 10 plus years. Yeah. We're both married to local people. We both had legitimate, proper, legal jobs where we paid tax.
Yep.
You know, we did everything by the books. There we go. What did we get? Did we get any opportunity to naturalize?
Nope.
No. Could we settle down and become a citizen?
Nope.
Could we get a passport?
Nope.
Could we get any kind of a special treatment?
No. It's basically a tourist.
Yeah, you're like
Even
a tourist.
Though we had work permits, but that's all you get.
The work permit sucks anyway. You have
to lock down to your job.
Yeah, and you have to renew it every year. You have to go for a health test. There's an age limit. By the way, I think it's 60, around about maybe 65 or 60.
They changed it actually.
Did they?
Yeah.
But what is it now?
I think it's 55 or 60.
Yeah, either way, so let's say it's 60.
Yeah.
And then you cannot get a work permit if you're over 60.
Yeah.
So there's a time limit on how long you can be there, how useful you are to the Chinese government. Also, if you fail your health test, because they test you for, like you said, AIDS and any kind of communicable disease and stuff. Let's just say you do pick up some kind of a disease, hepatitis or something while you're in China, and you test negative, they don't give you your visa.
I mean positive.
Sorry, well, you know what I mean, positive. Yeah, if it's a negative outcome.
Yes, yeah, that's it.
So basically, you're just a commodity to be used up as a foreigner in China.
Now that means the odds were always stacked against you anyway, but the positives always outweigh the negatives.
Sure,
right?
and that's why you put up with it. The fact that there is no future for you.
No.
You know, it's very different. And I just got to throw this back in there. If you look at a Chinese citizen that goes and moves to Australia, like we did, but they go to Australia, the UK, America, wherever, Sweden, it doesn't matter, and they marry a local and all that. Almost immediately, first of all, they can work. You know that when you're married to a local in China, you can't work on a spousal visa. You're not allowed to. You have to additionally get a work visa, which has a lot of all these different requirements, like I said, including the health test and stuff, which if you fail, you don't get.
Sure.
And it's, you know, it's a hell of a thing. But any Chinese citizen that's gone abroad will be, within months, be allowed to work, within years, probably given a permanent residence, a green card or a citizenship or whatever. And they can naturalize and become American or become Australian or whatever.
Yeah, actually, I want to say my wife and the vast majority of my Chinese friends here in the U.S. Not only have naturalized and become American citizens and gotten rid of their Chinese citizenship, right? But they've also integrated. They've integrated properly, and nobody treats them like they're not American. My wife tells me all the time, she can't believe how she's a foreigner, technically not, she's an American citizen, but she's treated like a local person, and no one looks the other in any different way.
Me. I'm not American, but I've got a driver's license, and it doesn't matter where I go. Nobody even questions. You know, that I might be
a foreigner. It's a different setup, right?
It's completely different. And also, don't forget, in the eyes of the law, you are no different. No. If you've naturalized and you become a citizen, in America or Australia, in the eyes of the law, you are exactly the same as somebody who was born in that country. Yes. And if you integrate well, then in the eyes of the local public, you also are a citizen. But in China, in the eyes of the law, you will always be a foreigner. And in the eyes of the local populace, you will always be a foreigner. It doesn't matter how much you learn the culture, learn the language. You can be the best Mandarin speaker in the world and know the entire history and be able to recite all the old ancient poems, and you know you become really big in the university society. You can do whatever you want, but you will still be exactly the same as a foreigner who's just stepped off the plane. Yeah, legally, and also
within certain parts of society as well.
No, I'm going to give it to you like this. Let's just say you're very well known in your town and your city because you've been there for 10, 20 years. Everybody knows you as that foreigner who can speak Chinese, and you know they know you. And then you decide to go on a little trip to, I don't know, Xi'an or somewhere, and you just step off the bus. No one there is going to treat you different, as they're going to be like, oh, look, he just got off the plane. Oh, it's this foreigner. Howdy, oh, 你可以说我们中文 you know, it's just, you know, that kind of nonsense. You're going to be the same. And that's something that is very disappointing. And something you realize after long term is that China is not, it's not when, it's if. You know, it's not if, it's when. Sorry, it's not if, it's when you will have to leave.
Right.
It's an inevitability.
It is. I'm not trying to balance this out with positivity, but I do want to swing this back to say that if you know the way that we're portraying it makes it sound like there was absolutely no reason to be there, which is not the case.
No, of course we also saw things changing.
It was getting better.
Yeah, and we were hoping that at some point that they would also liberalize their immigration policies and policy
and everything else that goes with it.
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
And it unfortunately went the other way around.
Yeah, it did.
Right, and so that's what we're seeing now is that it was a fantastic time to be in China. It was not only was it fun, but you felt like you were participating in a great diplomatic mission.
Yeah, and things were changing for the better. Absolutely,
it was great. You knew that China was going to be on the world stage, and you would be hand in hand with them.
Yeah,
and the problem is that, and I can't say this enough, it just did have. It was a U-turn. It's a U-turn, and we're now seeing the last bit of fallout from that U-turn.
Yeah.
And so when we say foreigners are getting kicked out, they legitimately are getting kicked out. Yeah, a lot of it's free will, but they're making it more and more hostile and less likely for you to be able to even solidify your position there than it was even before.
You know, my friends living in Shanghai, many of them right now, are now getting extra police checks because they're foreigners. Yep. You know, and some of them have Chinese wives. Some of them are living with their Chinese family, and the police will come in and tell their Chinese family to keep an eye on this foreigner.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're coming to check them, and they're getting separate tests now from the locals.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very unwelcoming situation, and that's why I say, whether they're actually saying, listen, we don't want foreigners to be here, get out, or it's just a byproduct of their rhetoric about foreigners being the fault of every problem in China, it's still having the same effect. People are feeling unwelcome.
Right.
In fact, it's kind of a strange situation because the only people that are actually defending this crazy zero COVID policy in Shanghai are the foreign shills that are left there.
The Chinese people we're talking to absolutely hate it.
No
Do you
one
think
is
they want to
supporting
be
it.
on lockdown and be starved to death?
Yeah,
No.
Nobody's supporting it. Just these foreigners, because they are trying so hard to say, look, I am on your side.
Yeah.
Look, I'm wearing the Chinese flag. I am on your side. Please don't kick me out.
Right. It's also, they're working for state media.
Yeah, of course.
State media picks these foreigners because they know if they pay them, then they'll champion the Chinese government's actions.
Sure.
And the people in Shanghai are looking at them being like, they don't want to turn on their TV or turn on their internet. And the only thing they're allowed to see is some white guy talking about how the lockdown is a good thing for them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's infuriating,
It
right?
is. It is.
It's actually racist.
Of course
if you think
it
about
is.
it, because what they're doing is saying, I'm getting special treatment because the government's giving me care packages so that I look satisfied. But meanwhile, the rest of the Chinese people are suffering and starving to death, right? Number two, what's happening is the last of the foreigners, kind of the people that you just brought up, really don't like us even talking about this. And
They don't want us to talk
I'll tell
about
you
it.
why. What this does when we talk about the reality of the situation is the last ones left, the last stragglers left over that are actually participating in this propaganda drive, don't want to see messages like this come out because it hurts their bottom line. It hurts their livelihood.
Yes.
But why, and you made a point the other day, why would you want to live in a country that blames you for the actions of somebody 10,000 miles away?
Yeah, if somebody who just happens to have the same skin color as you says something bad about the Chinese government or points out a mistake, why should that have a negative impact on you? It shouldn't.
No, but it does.
It does, because the Chinese government is incredibly racist and discriminatory. And they lump all foreigners together.
Yeah, you're just doesn't matter what color you are, you're just a foreigner.
And it doesn't matter if you're from Sweden or Colombia or from South Africa or from England or America, you're all the same.
Yeah.
It's a terrible, terrible situation. And a lot of people up until now, especially in Shanghai, have kind of ignored this reality and ignored all the rhetoric.
Yeah.
But it's getting dangerous, guys. And it was dangerous for Japanese people multiple times. It's been dangerous whenever they have anti-Japanese riots, which happens all the time. And it's dangerous now for foreigners because they're casting all the blame for all of the failures of the zero COVID policy on foreigners.
Not just that, every failure.
Yeah, every failure.
Everything is now foreigners' fault.
COVID came from overseas, according to...
ask the average person.
Yeah, according to the Chinese government, right?
Because they've been told that.
Yeah, any kind of economic downturn, it's the foreigners' fault.
Foreigners.
It's not a good idea.
The CIA made people bang pots and pans.
That's what they're saying.
Foreign forces. That
forces.
usually means the CIA.
Yeah.
Foreign forces forced people to bang pots and pans. And now they're blaming people, foreign influencers, for inspiring people to sell state secrets.
Yes.
It's like...
So...
the writing's on the wall, guys.
Absolutely. Foreigners are being kicked out directly and indirectly. Like by shutting down that whole, English teaching... whatever you want to call that whole industry, which they really did. They shut it down overnight. There was no warning.
Nope.
People that we know who are running schools legitimately, like
schools.
they actually had proper legitimate schools that they'd opened and spent a lot of money and all that kind of stuff, along with their Chinese spouse or whatever, had to be shut down. Mm-hmm. Almost everyone that we know has been affected. Either their side gigs got canceled or their main job got canceled, and that included their visa and everything.
Yeah, unless they were in state jobs, which some of them were. But
or teaching in a state school or whatever. A lot of people are trying to do sort of under the table online tutoring and stuff now to make up for it. But
there's crackdowns.
Yeah, of course there's crackdowns. But the fact of the matter is they shut that down. That was the first initial, signal that, you know what?
Sure.
We don't need these foreigners around here anymore. We're going to nationalize this stuff. And now just putting the blame for every stupid little thing that comes along in China on foreigners. Yeah, writing's on the wall, guys. Yeah. So, I mean, that's it really. There's not much more to say about it. Our heart goes out to all the people in Shanghai and in China right now. Whether you're a foreigner or not, it doesn't matter. Everybody's having a hard time right now. So just stay strong, everyone. And try to keep your head down and make proper decisions. Be educated about what's going on and stay safe, really, and stay awesome.